Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the BEA number 10GL1200R. This is their magnetic lock that's intended for a gate application, which is going to feature a conduit fitting. Let's go over this item, and this review is going to include a visual review of the item, a dimensional review of the item. We're going to go over the installation instructions that are included. But it's a magnetic lock, so they're, power them and have a switch. And that's pretty much it when it comes to these pieces of hardware. Really important pieces of hardware, because even though they have their fallback of being fail-safe, meaning they're limited, they're also incredibly elegant at solving problems that other pieces of hardware generally don't solve, at least don't solve as not to say inexpensively, but they solve certain problems relatively inexpensively. And this weatherproof multi-purpose mag lock for a gate is an example of that. So let's take a look at this item visually. Okay, dimensional review. Here's the business end of the mag lock. Very well encased, conduit fitting, gasket inside of here, wire lead. We'll go over the wiring once we look at the installation instructions. Let's take some dimensional properties of the business end of this magnetic lock. Overall length of the body, 8 inch. Overall height, or perhaps width, about 2.5, with an overall thickness of the body at about 1 5/8. It's heavy. This unit weighs 10.25 pounds. At least it does with its iron armature. Okay, 10GL1200R. And there's the label. You can pause the video to have a further review of that should you like. Let's set that aside. The armature. This unit has a lock status sensor in it. Basically, I believe that this is a reed magnet that is a reed switch that is in the body, and when the armature plate presents itself, obviously it will, I imagine, close that switch. Overall length, about 7 5/16. Overall height, about 2 3/8, with a thickness of about 5/8 of an inch. Then you're going to have your screw package. Very simple and straightforward. The large bolt is for the armature. That's what that real big hole in there is for. Then, of course, your machine bolt is here. You've got an Allen wrench that's going to go along with putting that bolt down through for the armature, and then just simply the rest of the fittings that you'll need for this. This unit's going to come with a paper template. That's handy. Okay. Obviously be mindful, both of the models are available for this are on this template, the SR and the R. We're doing the GL1200R. Forgive me. And so that template's very handy. Now we get into the installation instructions. Before we do that, let's go over the details down below this video. Designed with a rugged stainless steel housing, these electromagnetic locks are the ideal solution for sliding and swinging gates and high security doors. UL listed. Built-in remote lock sensor, ideal for monitoring, remote monitoring. Basically what that permits you to do with that switch, which will be related to the wires coming off of there, is to have some sort of, it can be a light, it can be an audible sensor, it can prevent something else from locking or something else from happening. When this armature plate is not mated to the face of the mag lock, I keep pointing over there, when it's not mated to the face of the mag lock, you can know the state, whether the mag lock and armature are present together or that they're not. That's simply what it does. Again, it's important possibly to know, or maybe to record that data. When was the gate opened? You know, it could provide you with, it certainly does provide you with the ability to know in that particular instance of when that was occurring. And I suppose there might be some way to create an audit trail out of that. I can't really think of a way to do that. But being able to track that data might be very nice to be able to do. I'm sure that there is a way to do that somehow. Available in a front-mounted with a 3/4 inch male universal threaded conduit fitting and a side-mounted model for swinging doors and gates. So therein lies the difference between our SR and our R model. And I'm pulling up the link to the product catalog that is down below this video, expecting to find it there. And it's not there. We'll get that resolved. Let's take a closer look. The difference is defined in the link called instructions. Pardon me, it's in the link called technical data that will allow you to review the SR, the side mount model, or the standard front mount. We have here, of course, just the standard front mount model that we're dealing with. Okay, the side mount will be based on your application and how exactly it is you want to have the power meet the unit. So if you're looking at that technical data sheet, you would want a side mount or a standard mount, let's say, where the wiring would be coming up through the more conventional location so that it's concealed in the header. This application of a front mount is where it's going to be literally surface mounted, and you need to bring that EMT up to the face of this unit. Okay, now let's go back to the extended description. No residual magnetism. That's good because you don't want to have an instance where it doesn't operate correctly, or maybe residual magnetism is going to force the unit to clank or slam closed. I've heard magnetic locks operate where they kind of make a little bit too much noise because that's already powered. It's also helpful, going back to that lock status sensor, you can also report to the door itself that you might want to have a time delay. I can imagine using the lock status monitor to be able to initiate door is in closed position, let's leave it unlocked for so many seconds. Or door is closed, let's now energize the unit, or let's tell possibly an electrically dogged exit device to operate based on the position of the door in relationship to the sensor. A switch like this is like a relay. You're really only limited by the imagination or what the opening really calls for, and having that switch on board can be shunted or it can be utilized. Field selectable 12 or 24 volt DC, built-in surge protection, and is UL and ULC listed for doors up to 90 minutes. Let's take a look at that link called technical data, and that will allow us a review, an overall review of the unit. UL listed and weather resistant. You do very occasionally see mag locks installed on exterior gate applications. In fact, right now I have a client wanting to do this same installation. The problem is they have a 1/4 mile wiring that they have to run, and the problem that I'm having is getting the client to understand that that distance is far too great to really electrify this opening because of the voltage drop that would occur over wiring, the size of the wire that you would need to go that total distance. You know, it might be a 1/4 mile away, but your total wire run is double that, right? The amount of power that you need to supply to get this thing to operate correctly is realistically impossible. The cost of the right diameter wire is, you know, $4 a foot, you know, that sort of thing. So you're dealing with, you know, wiring there and back. and multiple legs of it. Plus, it would be the size of the wire. You're not going to have anything that you're going to be able to connect it to because of how large it is. So be mindful that, of course, powering these and distance and wire size and the power supply that you're providing and voltage drop given that distance are all really important considerations. I had a client who was telling me that the electric strike that I supplied them worked for 2 months. And then it stopped working. Well, I went to the job site at a very inconvenient time as well, and could duplicate the behavior. It was intermittent, but it was interesting that the two triggers in this type of electric strike, you can use your imagination. A couple of manufacturers have them, at least a couple. The bottom one unlatched. The top one didn't. So I could literally operate the strike and get the bottom keeper to work, but the top I couldn't. It finally dawned on me to question, where's the power supply? Oh, yes, we moved it 2 days ago. We moved it yesterday, whatever the answer was. Where was it? Well, it was right above the doorway. Where is it now? 600 feet away. I was able to use my multimeter to determine that there was inadequate voltage getting to the strike to make it operate correctly, and that bottom trigger was working because of gravity. It would unlock, and I could make it work because of gravity, and in terms of the way the strike was constructed internally. So voltage drop is important. Obviously, be mindful of that. Now, there are tables that you can find out the wire size you need based on the length that you're doing and voltage drop inherently and how to size a power supply. But in general, like looking at this technical data sheet, they're not planning on you powering this from 300 feet away. Okay, so be mindful of that. If you are, you have to take that into consideration. Plan appropriately with the wire run, the size of the wire, and the power supply that you're using to power it. The technical specs are there. They're NEMA 4 classified, both of them. They have a 1,200 pound holding force, which is inferred in the part number with the 1,200. The dimensional properties are there. The fact that you can throw 12 or 24 volt DC at it. And electromagnetic locks are not AC because AC will buzz. Like sometimes you can hear someone be buzzed in. That's an AC strike. You certainly wouldn't want to hear buzzing from this all the time when it was powered. So that's why they're DC. You have your current draw. As your volts go up, your amperage goes down. That relationship is there. 24 volt I think is more common, but not necessarily what you're going to use. You might have an intercom system that operates only on 12 volt. They have the rating cable specification, 24 gauge wire with a 7 foot, with a 3.5 foot run and a stainless steel housing on this unit. The family of products, it's the side mounted and the front mount models. Then you have the L and Z mounting brackets that are there. Below that, when we look at the applications of the technical data sheet, you can see immediately how those brackets will come into effect based on your application. If you're doing a standard door application, you're not going to need a mounting bracket really at all. Is just simply the bottom line. Well, actually, we're going to revise that. You will most certainly need a mounting bracket given your application. If you're doing a swinging application where you're going to use the SR mount, where the bolts are located, they're not going to be located in the face. They're going to run up through the body so that you can bolt this into the header. Okay? And it's not going to have this conduit. This is literally going to be for your front mount application. I could really only see this working in a construction where you do not need the L-shaped mounting brackets. But thankfully the diagram is there showing you how a swinging application or a sliding application will require that you utilize the brackets either mated to each other or split separately as it is for a sliding door application. If you're doing a new installation and you can tell that you're going to have to account for the mounting, you're going to want to pick up the L and Z mounting bracket as well. On that, the bottom of page 2 of the tech data sheet are some related products. Nothing is necessarily directly connected to this, although they're all indirectly connected. Obviously, having a receiver, maybe a sensor, an electric strike would be very common in many installations. Depending on how you're powering this, I suppose you could have a fail secure electric strike and a mag lock. The mag lock is fail safe, but you still want the door to be locked in the event of a power outage, but you still need to be able to get in should you be running that electric strike maybe on a battery backup. Limited by imagination really only how you would do this. Now to the installation instructions, and they are included with the package, so it's really going to start with page 1 of just you needing to determine how are you installing this, swinging or a sliding gate. And this is intended for a gate application. It's weatherized, it's stainless, and it's intended to be used in an exterior application. Now, once you've determined how you're going to bolt it all down, step 6 is the wiring. So you're going to take your red and your black, we don't have a black, okay. So you're going to take your green and orange and tie those together. Oh, forgive me. I was about to determine what black was. Red and black are present. Green and orange and present are for 12-volt wiring. Otherwise, 24-volt wiring, red to red, orange to red is positive, orange is negative. Your black and green will get tied together. Then the other 3 wires are simply your switch. Well, with the switch, what do you have? A common, a normally open, and a normally closed. So your common is going to be brown, which is here. Your yellow is normally open, and then your blue is normally closed. All of these wires are accounted for. You can basically control what behavior is happening with that switch in the face of the mag lock. And it's a normally closed switch as it stands. What that means is when you have the unit and it's not powered, the switch is closed. Okay? Which means when you are powering it, the switch is open. That means electricity will not flow through that. When the power is cut, you're going to default to a normally closed state. So you can manipulate the 2 different positions, normally closed or normally open, to suit your monitoring requirements. Okay? Basically, you probably want to be able to have an LED that is red, let's say, when it's locked, when you're in the normally open position, and maybe a green LED when you're in the normally closed position. Okay? So when the door is open, allowing egress, you might call that green. You can supply it that way by connecting your normally closed or normally open legs to the LEDs appropriately. You can have enunciators. You can also have that lock status monitor communicate with other pieces of hardware, should that be important. Again, limited by the imagination, but that's how that switch is going to work. It's like any other micro switch with its common, normally open, normally closed states. Note, for 12-volt source, connect the red and black wires and connect green and orange wires. For 24-volt, short the black and green, tie them together, and connect the red and orange wires, positive and negative. Lock status contacts change status when the bonding occurs. Okay, so I said earlier when it's energized, really when bonding occurs, because that will be a read. I believe it'll be a magnetic switch that's in there. So it's not relying on it's relying on the fact that it's a mechanical switch. Okay. Now then, the last page are going to be your templates, which again, do a reality check on everything, make sure it all works. If you're doing a new installation, I would really think you need to pick up the the Z brackets or the L brackets as well, which you can turn into a Z bracket. Very typical and common. Obviously, for me, the most common to see is a swinging gate application, but you'll very occasionally have a sliding gate, like if you have a motorized gate for vehicular access, you'll see it there as well. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the BEA products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. If you have any questions on the BEA, this is their part number 10GL1200R, weatherproof multi-purpose mag lock with a conduit fitting, or any other 3/4 inch conduit, I believe it said earlier, or any other BEA product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.